One day, I decided to do a water contamination test on the tap water in my home. When I received the results, I found high levels of potentially harmful chemicals in my own water. This led me to researching polluting sites in my county, and I stumbled upon a pattern of them being in poorer communities. As it turns out, this is not a localized issue, but a phenomenon called environmental injustice that occurs across the country. Environmental injustices occur when people in lower class or heavily minority populated areas have a higher exposure to pollution and contaminated environments. The effects of living in these areas can lead to illness or even death. However, this is a silent killer. Many people don't know what environmental injustice is or where it is occurring. So this could be going on in your own community. Therefore, it is important to spread the word. Low-income communities across the nation are being poisoned, and it's our job to demand that the government puts a stop to it. Today, I will discuss the drastic health effects of pollution, how these disproportionately affect areas with higher minority populations and poverty, and what you can do to help stop environmental injustice. Primarily, the government's lack of regulation on harmful pollution in poor communities can cause many health problems. Establishments like oil refineries, chemical plants, toxic waste yards, incinerators, factory farms, and highways emit contaminants. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People reports that toxins like mercury, arsenic, and lead fill the air near incinerators, factories, and chemical plants, and are breathed in by those living there. This leads to mercury poisoning, lead poisoning, as well as long-lasting lung problems. Factory farm runoff contains pathogens, antibodies, and toxic chemicals that seep into the groundwater. This makes the water that people drink, shower, clean, and cook with unsafe. People living near factory farms also report irritation to their eyes, noses, and throats, along with a decline in the quality of life. A very common pollutant at these sites listed earlier is particulate matter, which can have even more harmful effects. According to Jacoby Wilson, an environmental health scientist at the University of Maryland, particulate matter in the air causes asthma, heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure, increased infant mortality rates, birth defects, diabetes, and even cancer. Long-term exposure to this pollutant can put people at a higher risk for mortality after contracting COVID-19. These harsh effects are a part of a larger problem. Minorities and low-income communities are the ones predominantly experiencing these harmful effects. Polluting establishments set up shop in minority communities. According to University of Michigan, people of color comprise 56% of the population living in neighborhoods with toxic release facilities. Therefore, a majority of the people getting sick and dying because of these harmful chemicals are racial minorities. Environmental Health News says that people of color are almost twice as likely as white people to live near dangerous chemical plants. Poorer neighborhoods are unjustly more often located near sites that release harmful pollution. Homes near industrial polluters tend to be cheaper. This forces low-income families to live in harmful areas because it is all they can afford. The burden of particulate matter is 1.35 times higher for Americans living in poverty, and 1.54 times higher for African Americans. This is a direct result of living near factories, incinerators, and other contaminating sites. This problem is very real and happening in our own country. Many cities suffer from environmental injustice. Flint, Michigan has had water contamination for 6 years. It is so bad that the running water is dangerous to drink. More than 50% of Flint residents are people of color. Scientific American reports that Richmond, Virginia is in the vicinity of 5 major oil refineries, 3 chemical companies, 8 Superfund sites, dozens of other toxic waste sites, highways, 2 rail yards, ports and marine terminals where tankers dock, and other contaminating sites. The minority population of Richmond is 82.7%. Unfortunately, those affected can't help themselves. Residents of polluted communities are pretty much stuck with these issues. Because these communities lack wealth, they in turn lack political power. This makes it very difficult for the communities to create political change all by themselves or take legal action against the companies that are harming them. They also can't move away because their house value is 0. Nobody wants to buy homes in unsafe environments, so they can't sell their homes to move somewhere better. However, there is a solution. Change is possible if we all come together. NRDC, an organization fighting environmental injustice, reports working with local groups in Chicago to bring national attention to refinery waste pollution. Laws were quickly put in place because of their work that protect the citizens of the city. The federal government is required to look at petitions that get a certain number of signatures. So, if we are to bring a petition to their attention by all signing it, they'll be more likely to do something to put a stop to environmental injustice. Ultimately, it is necessary that we demand that the government stop allowing disadvantaged communities to be contaminated. Toxic waste sites, chemical plants, factory farms, and other industrial polluters need to be restricted from being set up near communities. It is unjust that solely poor communities and communities of color must deal with the health effects. Their baseline safety is being threatened. People cannot even eat, drink, or breathe without being poisoned. It is time for us to demand change. Visit actionnetwork.org or the link in the description to sign the petition that will demand that Congress address environmental injustice and regulate the disproportionate effects of pollution. I'll leave you with this opportunity to incite change and help those in need.